love when you talk about food as a medicine, and I'd love to, I think my listeners, you know, our audience here would love to hear more about that too. And I think that ties in personally with like how Bragg's apple cider vinegar for me has helped, you know, sort of limit, like I've found with some of these refresher drinks as well, I found that I kind of drink some of these through the day. I'm going to ask you about how many of these I should and shouldn't drink, if you don't mind, because I don't know if if you can OD on ACV. But food is medicine. What does that mean to you? And can you, you know, which I obviously I've been listening to the Pagan Diet. It's great. So
yeah. So, you know, like this Bragg shot has 20 calories, but what we were talking about before is that it's not just the calories in there that's having the benefit. It's actually the information in the food. So there's minerals and postbiotics and prebiotics and
right.
and things that help regulate your biology. So every single bite of food you take is both fuel, and it can be good fuel or bad fuel, right? It can be dirty, dirty fuel, or it can be really clean fuel. And in addition to the fuel aspect, it's actually giving instructions to every single cell and organ and system in your body in real time. It regulates your immune system, your digestive system, your gut microbiome, your ability to make energy in your cells, your detox system, your hormones, your brain chemistry, what you're made of. Every single bite of food is what you're made of. And the information there has the ability to change all of your biology in real time. So it can do it for good or bad. And we see that, you know, bad food kills 11 million people a year. I think that's an underestimate. That's the #1 killer in the world today is diet.
We're obviously living through this global COVID pandemic, and it's very interesting the fear that's been created. There's so many people around that, but when you think about what's just at the end of the street in terms of diet, so
but let me mention something about the COVID, because the truth is that if you're chronically ill or obese or overweight, that you're 6 times more likely to end up in the hospital and 12 times more likely to die. And the reason people are overweight or chronically ill is because of food. So right. The solution to COVID in part is to make us more resilient and our immune systems work better so we don't get as sick, don't end up in the hospital, don't die, and we don't have to shut down the world. And
food is our medicine. Be your best doctor. Be your own doctor, right?
That's right. That's right. And so
my grandfather used to say, "You are what you eat."
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
He always used to say, "You are what you eat," and he never ate desserts.
You're also what you ate.
Right. So you were saying, so literally each meal that you have is information that your body processes.
Yeah.
So obviously everything you're eating is having an impact on your mental, your physical, your emotional.
Absolutely. I just got the most incredible email yesterday from someone who was the owner of a big fast food company, believe it or not. And I gave a talk to him years ago, and he said he followed the advice, and he said he noticed total transformation, not only his physical health, he lost 100 pounds, but he noticed his mental health, his mood, his emotional regulation, all that completely changed. So mental health and food are totally tied into one another. And we know this from the data that if you look at clinical trials and experiments where they swap out junk food and they give them healthy food for people with depression, it works better than medication. If you take kids who are having behavioral issues in juvenile detention centers, you swap out the junk food for healthy food, there's a 91% reduction in violent behavior. I mean, even a 100% reduction in suicides. And in this group, suicide's the 3rd leading cause of death. I mean, imagine if there was a drug that could reduce suicides by 100%. That's how powerful food is. And it can reverse diabetes, heart disease. It can help, obviously, reverse diabetes, even is used as a treatment in Alzheimer's now. So we really need to refocus on the way we're eating as thinking about every bite as information or instructions or medicine, and the quality has to be the central focus of what we're doing when we choose something. And I'll give you an example of how this works, right?
Yeah.
Let's just take...
can we just touch on that? Because I would say both you and I are incredibly privileged people, right? We can sit here at this time of the day and talk about food, which is awesome. And you're helping a lot of people about it, right? And I'm talking about Bragg's because but for people who don't have either the time or the means for a diet that, you know, sometimes isn't, I think it can be very expensive for people to eat good food. What do you say to those people, and how do we help? You know, what is a way around it, or a solution, or a, you know,
Well, there's a whole chapter in the book called "Make Healthy Eating Affordable," and
Right.
I think the myth that gets propagated by the food industry, which keeps us hooked on their food, is that cooking is a drudgery, it's expensive, it's difficult to eat well, it's time consuming, and it's all a myth. It's just a myth.
Right.
And I just tell you a quick story. Yes, if you want to buy a $70 grass-fed ribeye steak or some heirloom tomatoes, something, fine, okay. But there is no barrier really for most people in this country to start to move towards healthier eating. And I went and, as part of this movie Fed Up, went to South Carolina and visited this family of 5 who lived in a trailer on food stamps and disability. All they had was, I think, $1,000 a month for food for the 5 of them. And they were massively sick. I mean, the father was already on dialysis from kidney failure, from diabetes at 42. The mother was, huge and had all kinds of health issues. The son was 16 and almost diabetic and 50% body fat. And rather than giving them a lecture, I said, let's just use this guide from the Environmental Working Group, which is good food on a tight budget, how to eat well for you, the planet, and the wallet. And we made turkey chili, a salad, sweet potatoes in the oven, some sauteed asparagus, just simple food. And they were shocked that they didn't, they never made food in their kitchen before. And they saw how easy it was and fun it was. And I showed them how to peel garlic and chop an onion. I mean, just basic things. And they loved it. And then they said, I said, here's a guide, and you can do this. They lived in one of the worst food deserts in America, in South Carolina. And within the first week, the one mother texted me, they lost 18 pounds. The first year, they lost 200 pounds as a family. The father was able to get a new kidney, and they did it in one of the worst food deserts in America. And they had the ability to just learn some basic skills. So it's like anything else. I mean, if you don't know how to do something, it's overwhelming. If you don't know where to shop, or where to get the cheap food, or how to cook, or how to chop a vegetable, it's overwhelming. But it's a skill like anything else. And most of us learn how to use our phones and computers and cars and all this stuff, but it's not that hard to cook. It's just a few simple principles. And I believe that Jamie Oliver worked on this food revolution. Like, if we could just get people cooking and get everybody to cook a dinner, change everything. And then during COVID, people are cooking. Yeah, and there are more and more people now cooking because of COVID. So I think that's a silver lining. But they're tending toward eating more junk food and pastries and sugar, which is really bad during COVID. You want to basically focus on promoting your immune system strength, and this by cutting out all the crap and cutting out the sugar and the processed foods and eating more fruits and vegetables and whole foods. It's the obvious stuff.
Yeah. In terms of the Pegan diet, which is interesting, I've watched Game Changers and I'm sort of, been thinking more and more because of I have a Buddhist philosophy. And so I think more about the planet and consciously I do it for, I'm trying to be more conscious about how I'm eating and stuff. And I'm in a position to be able to do so, which I've said is lucky. But I do have a thing where I'm also O positive. I don't know whether that's the blood type diet. There are all these different diets that have been out. It's so confusing, right? It's like, what do you do? And I think ultimately, where I sort of have landed is actually very, I think, in that Pegan space, which is, since I'm listening to the book, I'm like, oh yeah, this makes sense. But when we talk about the planet and there was some interesting stuff that slightly blew my mind. But that, it's just, when we talk about the planet, we think, okay, more meat, worse for the planet, right? Because, but there's a certain type of meat, right? And there's a certain type of farming. And I'd love you just to explain a little bit of that, because I'm somebody who, does eat the occasional piece of meat because I think it's good for me, not because I want to you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 big issues around meat. 1 is moral and ethical, which is going to be your Buddhist philosophy. 2 is environmental and climate, and 3 is health. And they all get kind of smushed together. So the moral and ethical, if you are morally opposed, I don't have a problem. I have patients who are Buddhist monks, and I support them to pick the right foods. And often, I think the Dalai Lama eats meat, though.
Listen, I
heard he loves steak.
I've been practicing Buddhism since I was 16, and it is not about not eating. I had a funny conversation with somebody, and it became a memeable event because I said I have a house in England where I have cows in the garden, and I used to look at them and go, man, those cows it became a laughable, memeable joke, and the internet exploded with it. I thought it was so funny.
That's so
but
funny.
Actually, because I had this thinking at one point, I was like, I wonder if as we were cannibals at one time in the, eating one another. I wonder if there'll be a time where it'll be like, can you believe we used to eat animals? Because
maybe, but here's the truth. You know, the universe is one big restaurant consuming itself. In other words,
right.
we like, if you're growing vegetables, it's an agricultural act. It's destructive. You're literally, let's say you have a cabbage patch and you're plowing it under, you might be killing rabbits and moles and mice. And so is worth a lot. And there's 7 billion animals that get killed every year just growing vegetables, right? 7 billion animals. And not only that, but like, if you look at organic vegetables, how they're grown is using bone meal and oyster shells and all kinds of animal products to grow vegetables. But your broccoli is a carnivore, but your steak is actually a vegetarian.
Right.
And so we just kind of like think about it. As far as